Hi, this is Steve Cochran with a special commercial-free edition of Live from My Office. On this episode, David Hochberg, our title sponsor, Team Hochberg. David Hochberg is the guy that got me on this property tax mess in Cook County. And the reason it matters to you wherever you live, if you live outside of Cook County, second largest county in the country, is because too often governments operate this way. And there aren't any resources left in the media at any serviceable level to keep an eye on government the way the free press was established. So they're getting away with murder. And in the case of the Cook County story, the property taxes matter because people have not gotten their bills. It sounds insane. You're thinking, well, why would I want my bill? Well, because it's a gigantic bill. And when it's delayed by 3 or 4 months, people in Cook County will now have to pay their bills, as Maria Pappas, the county treasurer, will explain, in a delayed manner for the next year. So it creates cash flow problems. It's a problem for businesses. It's a problem for residential folks, all of whom wouldn't be in escrow. They're dipping into their funds anyway, I'm sure, because of inflation. They don't know what they have to pay in taxes. It's stress related and creating stress, and all because of bad politicians doing bad things in one office in particular. So we'll do a little backstory with David Hochberg, and Maria Pappas will explain where it goes from here. This is from the WLS morning show I do every day from 5:30 to 9 on 890 WLS in Chicago, which you can hear wherever you stream. And she'll explain what happens from here. But without Hochberg's prodding and needling, I would not have pushed this to the point where Maria Pappas came on and said, we're going to get these online no later than the middle of November, less than a month from now. And people will have a sense of what they have to pay, which could help ease the stress a little bit. But as of the time we're recording this on October 24th, we still don't have an answer from the assessor's office about why this happened, and they won't even come on to answer any questions. So I hope that setup all makes sense. Just a couple other disclaimers. Everything that Mr. Hochberg and I discuss is under the umbrella of allegedly, even though it's based on sources, information, and is vetted to the best of our ability. But those sources are good. They're legit. It's been double sourced. But we say allegedly for the sake of keeping the attorneys employed. I want to warn you about language. I had a couple slips of the tongue here. So there is some language in this episode with the Hochberg piece of it in particular. But the most important thing for you to remember is you can't have an attitude as, well, it's the government. They screw us all the time. They're going to screw us again. You have control on election day, and you have control in between election days by saying, I will not allow government to run this way or to put me under stress and me in a bad spot because you won't do your job. So it's not just Cook County in Illinois. It can happen anywhere. The story of the Cook County property tax mess. It begins with a replay of Maria Pappas as she appeared on my WLS radio program talking about what her office would do and what she thinks happened to get us here and how she plans on having us at least have a sense of what a financial problem we have and how she can help us pull ourselves out of it. So we lead things off with the Cook County Treasurer, Maria Pappas. Oh, by the way, and stick around for the end because we do ask her if she's going to run for the mayor of Chicago. You'll like her answer. I don't like when politicians just throw out a bunch of numbers, but I think I'm right about these numbers.
Tell us.
40% or so of the residents of Illinois live in Cook County. Cook County, as it stands, would be the 23rd largest state in the country by population. There's a tremendous amount of money that has to go through Cook County. Property taxes have to be issued. Bills have to come out on time. And yet here we sit in October, leading up to Halloween, especially Thanksgiving, Christmas. People are living with inflation. They have to budget their money more carefully than ever. And we're still waiting for the second installment of the Cook County tax bill, which should have been coming out so you could pay it August 1st.
3 months ago.
So, look, here's what I know after we made tons of calls about this. And again, David Hochberg started the fire on all this. No bills. Inflation means if you haven't escrowed the money, I assume, like most people, whether you're a business owner or an individual, you've been dipping into your fund.
Or you have it set aside.
To pay your bills.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how long you keep it set aside.
Wow.
No explanation from anyone prior to Maria Pappas coming on today. And by the way, I do not believe this fault lies in her office. I don't. And she made a lot of news this week. And we're going to talk about the sale and error story and other things. But I don't believe this is a treasurer's problem. And I'll tell you why in a second. The excuses we're hearing, and I've heard, include a 30 to 50-year-old mainframe computer failure, a delay in an opinion from the state's attorney's office, Kim Fox, not enough push from Tony Preckwinkle to get this done. Meanwhile, you got businesses and homeowners who have tax bills to pay. They don't know when they're going to come, and you're going to have what amounts to three of the biggest bills, if not actually the three biggest bills you're going to pay all year coming in the course of 9 months. It's unfair. It's ridiculous. And, it makes you ask the other questions, too. How's the county paying their bills if they're not collecting property taxes?
$16 billion still just out there?
It's insane. And it would never be allowed in the private sector. So the reason I believe this is not in Maria Pappas' office, and she could defend herself, obviously, and I believe this is Fritz Kage's problem, and Fritz Kage has not come on the show, been asked again and again and again, and Scott Smith, who does things like books Fritz Kage, said not going to see him till next spring. He doesn't need to answer the questions. You, the public, vote him in. The trail of this property bill generation goes from the assessor to the board of the review, back to the assessor, to the Department of Revenue, back to the assessor again, to the county clerk, and eventually to Maria Pappas' office. So I bring in you now, Madam Treasurer, to fix
Steve,
all
good
of
morning.
this. You got to fix all of this right now.
Yeah. Okay, so look, we just finished the marathon race in Chicago, right? Let me get this in perspective. Everybody starts at the starting line, right? And then everybody finishes at different times, correct? What happened here was the assessor got to the start line 4 months late, or 4 hours late. Put it any way you want. It's 4 months or 4 hours late.
No, I get the analogy, yeah.
So what happens? Then everything is late. It really, I mean, you can sit and say it's this fault, that fault, this fault, the mainframe fault, all of these faults. It doesn't make any difference. It's 4 months late, and here's the bottom line. This is going to continue to be 4 months late. So let's get this in perspective. The March bill, March 1st is due. The last time we had a pandemic, Preckwinkle came in and extended it. So my best guess is the county board's going to come in and they're going to say, wait a minute, since this is late, and I'm going to tell you when the due date is in just a minute, the March date we're going to extend to April, but the August date can't be met. Steve, there's no numbers to get August out. I have paper sitting with blank pages. So this is now going to be late for at least 2 years till everybody gets caught up. Because it's 4 months late now.
And it's what you said. It's inexcusable.
But you can't even go and say, what am I going to do? Say, hey, Kage, why did you go to the start line 4 months late? What do you think I'm going to get? I mean, listen, I'm a lawyer, okay? What happens in a medical malpractice case? It's called the conspiracy of silence. If somebody gets killed in the operating room, you think the radiologist says it's the surgeon's fault?
Yeah, no, listen, I get that. I get that. But you're all separately elected officials.
Exactly.
You work in separately elected. But listen, I get this. You work in separately elected silos where you do your jobs to the best of your ability. And I'm not putting this on the treasurer's office. She can't put the bills out if she doesn't have the data. But at the bare minimum, Fritz Kage needs to show up here and other places that are asking for answers to questions when he was elected on what was alleged to be a new transparency.
Well, look, you know what? You got to look at the history here. Kage comes out of being created by the press. The Chicago Tribune, Cranes created him as versus Berrios. He was created by the press. So you don't really think that the people who created him, go back and look at the clips, are going to come out and trash him? Come on. That's why nobody's saying anything. They created him. The Tribune story, which shifted residential to commercial, was created by the press in this town. It was a huge deal. What do you think? They're going to come out now and start trashing him?
No, I'm not. But listen, I'm not here to say the Tribune's not doing their job. I'm here to say Kagi owes an explanation at the bare minimum to the listeners of this show.
He keeps telling people that they'll be out and they're late and why they're late. It's been all over Cranes. You know, Greg Hines has written it. But you know what? Let me tell you something. I'm 74 years old. I happen to not be afraid to come on. I'm not. You know, turned out a study. The guy that wrote the study trashed me. You got to take your hits in this business. And he's young. He's young. I've been doing this for 30 years. I look at him, okay, nice guy, okay, but you got to look at the deed and you got to look at the doer. He's a nice guy. He just messed up. It's okay. He'll figure it out at some point. The problem here is not the due date. Listen to me. The problem is not the due date. The problem is commercial properties are not being sold in this county because people don't know and businesses don't know what the bills are going to be. And in the process, interest has gone up 6%. So commercial property in this town is absolutely stymied.
So when you have valuations locked up and you can't close deals, that is something else that's going to be affected and
that's
felt.
The main issue, because 700,000 of these bills come in through mortgage companies. The mortgage companies have monies in escrow, okay?
Sure.
So nobody says anything about that. Let me tell you something. The residences in Cook County, nobody comes up to me on the street and says, "Hey, Maria, please give me a bill." They don't. They're glad it's late. The person, the people, the quantitative group that is upset about this is the commercial.
But Madam Treasurer, I get that. But here's the rest of this for me is I understand the human nature. Yeah, I don't need to see the bill.
Right.
I'm not escrowed. I don't want to see the bill. But they are going to see the bill. And they're going to have to pay it. And the closer this gets to Christmas, human nature is what it is. Inflation, Christmas, another bill in March, another bill in August. It's ridiculous to have people in this position.
You're not going to have an August bill. It's going to be delayed and delayed and delayed.
But
I bet the next August bill won't be due until October.
But again, this is not a function of your office. But I'm just saying, Cook County residents don't. It's bad in general.
I'm going to give you some news.
Wait. I know you're going to give me some news, but wait. Just let me finish this point. As you go forward in this, I know you don't want this. I don't want this. Nobody wants this. You don't want people in Cook County wandering around going, "Well, Cook County screwed us again." What are you going to do? You can't fix it. You can't do anything. You can't fix it. Cook County did it to us again. That's not your office. That's not the way you've handled your office and lowered your budget year after year and got out there in front of people. So what are people listening are supposed to do if they're pissed off about this and they want to do something about it?
Okay, here's what you're going to do. I'm going to get a file, what's called a file. I get all 1.8 million bills. I'm going to get it electronically. I'm probably going to have that on my desk on around the 12th of November. That's the expectation here, okay? It's going to take 3 to 4 days for me to make sure that the numbers that they sent me are right, so that your exemptions are on the bill, okay, your homeowner's exemption, your senior exemption, so all of that's right. It takes us 3 days to process it. On November 15th, it's going on the Internet. You can download your bill online.
That's good.
You are getting the rare sitting ovation right now.
You're getting, and not only that, you can pay it. You want to pay it on November 15th? Pay it online. Go to Chase. We've already alerted Chase. You can go to Chase. You can come to my office the following Monday if you want, which is really not wise to get on a train or a bus and come downtown in this environment. Just go online and pay it. Go to your local Chase bank and pay it. You can download that bill online. Do not wait for the United States Post Office to deliver it to you on December 1st, payable December 30th. So now you're going to be able to get your deductions. You're going to be able to see how much you owe, and probably in the interim, the Cook County Board is going to pass an ordinance. And what are they going to say? They're going to say that the March bill, you don't have to pay it March 1st. You don't have to pay it March 1st. They're going to give you some grace time the way they did last year because of COVID. They'll probably move it to April 1st. And then they are going to come out because everything's still delayed. If you're 4 hours late starting the marathon, you're going to be 4 hours late until you start running 12-minute miles instead of 20-minute miles, which is what they're all trying to do. The August bill ain't happening, Steve. Listen to me. There's no August bill. So quit talking about 3 bills coming out at once. It's not happening. There's no numbers for August. My best guess is, and you can quote me on this, is that the August bill probably won't be due until October or November, because it's going to take them 2 full years to get caught up. So nobody's telling you this, and I'm coming on for all the electeds and everybody, and I'm telling you the truth.
And listen, it's appreciated. Student loans starting up again in January. Credit card payments are up because of interest rates. You have to budget. You got to figure out when you got to pay the big bills. The big bill's the property bill. You can't close business sales and residential sales.
Buy homes.
That's why this news is important. And Cook County Treasurer Maria Pappas just made news by telling you that you have a date where these are going to be available online. You can make the choice to get it done right there, and you're going to know what you have to pay. And that's on or about when?
On or about November 15th. We'll come on the air. We'll come back on.
Beautiful.
We'll tell you exactly when
Great.
the figures are going up.
Beautiful.
You can download the bill. You can go to, download the bill. You're fine. Let me just say one other thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
CookCountyTreasure.com, CookCountyTreasure.com is the most visited website probably in the country. I have as many as 2 million people a month come to that site. Why do they come to that site? Because they can pay online. They can get a 20-year history of their property. They can go back and see how that property bill has gone up over 20 years. They can see why their property tax bill is going up, because they can get an accurate accounting of all 14 agencies that they pay to, and it will tell them what the debt is and the unfunded pension liability is for each of the governments.
Good for
it
you.
will also tell you, wait, just get this. Okay, so everybody's complaining about Chicago, right? And this is reassessment for Chicago. There's 44,000 people in Chicago on pension and 33,000 working. I've got listed on that site for all 526 governments in Cook County, New Trier, Wilmette, you name it. I tell you this information. You would have to be really foolish not to go to my website and look, put in your address. A picture of your house, your lot, or your commercial building is going to show up. I'm giving you a full history, and you can predict what's going to happen to your bill.
Yeah, the Google Maps of taxes.
That's good.
Yeah, so this, and let me just say one other thing. The largest owners of property in Cook County are Polish people. I've had 137 downloads in Polish because this website and property taxes are so complicated, nobody wants it in English if they speak another language.
Sure.
It's complicated.
Sure.
You don't wake up in Poland and say, do I get an exemption? But there's thousands of Polish people who don't apply for homeowners, don't realize that if they're a senior and over 65, they can get $500 off every year, don't realize if they're over 65 and making under $65,000, they can get another $500 off. I'm sitting on $40 million worth of unclaimed exemptions, you got to let me finish, and $79 million going back 20 years on refunds where people have overpaid because things got messed up at a closing. The finance company paid, you got a bill, and then you pay. You can go back 20 years, and I've got a grid. That's why 2 million people come to the site. You should get to this site before you look at your bill. Why? Because my site is going to tell you if you missed your homeowner, senior, or senior freeze going back 4 years, and if you missed it all 4 years, it's worth like $6,000. Hello?
Yeah, right. Who couldn't use that? You know what you can use that for? Your November bill when you see it online. CookCountyTreasurer.org. Now, listen, Sale and Air, big news this week. It's a great thing to do, especially in a great find by you in a study that you commissioned. And we don't have time to talk about it, but I'm encouraging people to go to Sale and Air. Google up Maria Pappas, Cook County Treasurer, Sale in Air, and you'll see the story. But it's important. I salute you for doing it, recognizing it as a problem and trying to get it fixed. And I'm confident the legislature will do it. You'll come back and talk about it.
We'll
yes.
come back and tell you exactly what hour of the day the bills are up. How's that?
We
That's
love
fantastic.
That. That's great.
No, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But before you go, Jane has a very important question.
Yes, Maria. From one Greek to another, I love that you've come on the show, and I love what you're doing with the website and getting all the people to go there, and telling us what's happening with these dates. But from one Greek to another, you've been at this Cook County thing for a long time. Why not run for mayor?
I'd win.
Okay.
And the worst case scenario is you'd win?
Yeah, I'd win. Exactly. And then what? You don't have a police department, right? You're down 4,000 officers, right? Everybody's getting shot, right? Yeah.
I don't want to run because I'd win.
I'd win.
Dirty, yeah. You want me to give you a list of things that are wrong?
That is fantastic. Oh, that's my favorite.
I would, because you know what? You know, if you look at the cast of people are looking for somebody who's just a character. You know what I mean? A 74-year-old gray-haired grandmother walking around with crazy Jackson telling the truth. And then what? There's no staff. Who are you going to hire? Who are you going to hire that's going to come in and decide that they want to save the city and put in 70 and 80-hour weeks?
Well,
who wants to do it? Who wants to do it?
Well, you may not want to.
Maria Pappas.
You may not want to, but don't close the door.
Yeah, you'd win.
Let me just tell you something. You know what? I got to tell you something. I really like you guys, but I gave up having breakfast with my 5-year-old grandson who's eating pancakes in a restaurant and waiting for me. So,
that's more important.
Let me tell you something.
We get
if
it.
I'm mayor, you think I'm going to get to take him to breakfast?
Bring him with you.
No, that is more important. But he would like you if you ran.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer, very much. Go enjoy your breakfast.
Thanks, Maria.
It's Maria Pappas. All right, let's all take a break. A breather, a cleansing breath.
I'd like to have pancakes,
How
too.
great is that answer? I'm not going to run because I'd win.
I love it.
So there you have the Cook County Treasurer. And as we continue on a special commercial-free edition of Live from My Office, let me bring you the David Hochberg story here. Hochberg runs a very successful business. You hear me talking about it all the time on Live from My Office. But his business was being hurt. It fired him up about what this problem was. And like a bad onion, the more layers you peel, the more it stinks. So here's David Hochberg's explanation and our conversation about what happened and where it goes from here and why you shouldn't put up with it and why you should be angry. It's now on Live from My Office. All right, it's my friend David Hochberg and Team Hochberg. We'll talk about a business thing. He didn't ask. I'm going to make him talk about it in a bit. But you're the guy, and I want to give you credit for this. And on the radio, we don't normally have time to get into this longer conversation about it. But you're the guy who brought the story to me about the fact that Cook County's second installment of property tax bills hadn't gone out. And honestly, without you, nobody would have been talking about this. And now people are, at least by the middle of November, we're recording this on October 24th, they're going to have an opportunity to see what they owe so they can actually plan for it in December, because there's no other word for it, this clusterfuck of a situation that has been handled so poorly by the assessor's office in particular. It's just inexcusable, and in private business, it never would be done this way. Again, I know it's a little redundant because we covered a lot of it in the introduction, but I'm glad you're here, and I just want to say publicly thank you for stirring up this hornet's nest.
Oh, no, thank you for giving me the opportunity to use your stick. I mean, you've got a much larger stick than I do on your show to promote it and get it out there. I mean, when it was brought to my attention because the tax bills are coming out, and, you know, I got a show on GN on Saturdays, and our listeners were calling us and texting me, hey, when are the tax bills coming out? So I've got a relationship with Maria, you know, a professional relationship. She's been on my show. It's like she's been on your show. I'm like, hey, you know, what's the deal? And she's like, I'm literally on a plane heading to Greece. I'll call you when I get back. All right. In the meantime, 2 more weeks go by. We're getting later in the year. Tax bills still aren't out. People are still asking me what's going on. It's impacting our ability to get borrowers loans because we don't know what the new tax rate is going to be. It impacts our ability to help buyers and sellers get mortgages because we don't know how much is going to be held back for taxes. So I reached out to her, and she basically said, I can't talk. So when she came on your show, that's pretty big because then she told me I'm staying out of this until the air clears. And I'm just like, well, what the hell does that mean, right? It's like you got
right
people here.
because there's somebody here who's got to answer and be accountable for this. Now, as you know, it's not her office. They can't do anything until the treasurer's office can't do anything until they get the data presented to them. And this has been an education for me, and I think to a lesser extent for you as well. But let me back you up for a second. Explain in layman's terms why not getting the tax bills plugs up the works when it comes to commercial and residential real estate sales.
Sure. I'll try to make it simple as possible. So when you go to qualify for a home, you have to base your qualifying housing payment on your principal and interest, which is your mortgage payment, your taxes, and your insurance. Okay. Well, if you don't know what the taxes are, because the tax bills are delayed, then the servicer or the lender that you're trying to send the loan to has to come up with a bunch of different calculations to figure out, to make sure they have enough money to qualify you at the right rate, because they don't know what the tax bill is going to come in at, right? So if the tax bill was $12,000 one year, just to keep it simple, $1,000 a month, and now it's 18, and now it's, instead of 12, it's 24, right? Again, just to keep it simple. So now we have to qualify you instead of $1,000 a month, it's $2,000 a month. Well, that's a huge jump, right? That's the equivalent of a $150,000 mortgage qualifying, financing with these elevated rates. And the elevated rates haven't helped either, because everything's more expensive and borrowers are qualifying for less because they don't have as much money. Okay. So, you get to borrow because rates are over double from where they were in January of this year. So it also impacts, not only does it impact qualifying, it also impacts, and then as Maria said on your show, commercial loans aren't getting done because buyers don't know what the commercial property's taxes are going to be, so they can't figure out what their return's going to be on the commercial property they're buying.
So how do you buy it?
How do you buy it without knowing what your future taxes are going to be, at least for the next 2 or 3 years?
Right.
So that's a major problem, one. And then the second thing is, if you're a buyer of a home, it doesn't really impact you. But if you're a seller of a home that's looking to buy someplace else, you're looking to take away a certain amount of the proceeds from the sale of your home. Okay, so when you sell your home, I'll just keep it simple, right? You sell your home for 400 G's. You owe a $200,000 mortgage. Okay, the 200 comes out. You're now down to 200. Okay, you got to take care of the realtor, so that's 25 grand. Okay, so now you're down to 175. Okay, now you're thinking that you're going to be carrying over, and then you got to give a tax proration. You should pay your taxes in arrears. So you're going to give a tax proration for the year that you lived in prior. Challenge is, you don't know what the taxes are going to be in the year forward. So any good buyer's attorney is going to tell the selling side, hey, we don't know what the taxes are because tax bills aren't out. We're going to hold back twice the amount that we typically do. Now, in this case, it might be another 25 grand, right? Typically, it might have been 10 grand, but now they're going to hold 20 grand. It might not be that big of a deal, but if that seller was looking to carry over $165,000 to buy their next home, and now they're $10,000 less, you've got a lot of scrambling to do as a buyer and a lender to try to come up with an extra 10 grand.
So the banks don't want any part of those kind of deals, do they?
Well, the banks don't want any part of transactions that they don't know that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted.
Right. This is all estimated.
And in this case, you don't estimate things in mortgages, right? It's black and white, okay? There's no, you know what? You got a $12,000 tax bill this year. Fritz Kagi and his band of idiots over at the assessor's office hasn't gotten around to assessing the value, or they did 4 months late and everything's been pushed back. We don't know what it's going to be. So in order to cover their rear ends, right, if you're a buyer side, the buyer's attorney is going to be, all right, if your tax bill's, $10,000 or $12,000, we're going to hold back $20,000 or $24,000. And typically it would be 110 or 115% of the prior tax bill, right? That's what is industry standard. Now they're taking 2 times. Okay, so if you were thinking going into this, not thinking that the county government was so inept and couldn't get to do their job, which is basically what this is all about.
Exactly right.
It it just clogs up the entire system. And the biggest challenge that you have, and thank God for them, rates are at 16-year highs right now. Because if rates were still in the 3s and the 4s, this would have screwed up refinancing beyond belief, because they would have had 40 times the amount of volume they have now, because volume's down 60, 70% because nobody's really refinancing in any type of volume because of rates being so high. Rates have doubled, like I mentioned originally. So the only saving grace for these band of idiots, as I like to call them, because that's what they are, for not being able to do their job and communicate to their clients, which are the taxpayers of Cook County, what's going on.
Well, that's the thing.
Okay,
Cook County is the second largest county in America, behind LA County, and not far behind. And 40% of the residents of Illinois live in Cook County. At the bare minimum, being able to know what you owe the county in taxes, property taxes, twice a year, the biggest single bill you'll have in any given year in almost all cases, on a residential level, and a lot of commercial cases as well. The idea that you wouldn't know what that is and that you would have to wait, I mean, the ramifications of it are huge. In addition to what you're talking about, it's, well, how is Cook County paying their bills if they don't have any cash flow coming in from something as big as property tax collection from 1.8 million tax bills that should have gone out by now? It's just
equals 16
billion.
Well, hold on. 16 billion with a B.
It's just insane.
I mean, you're talking astronomical numbers. We're not talking like a Benjamin down at the bar and you're going to buy your buddies, some apps and some beers, right? I mean, you're talking $16 billion, and you can't get anybody from the assessor's office to come on your show.
Right.
Forget about my show. You got a much bigger audience than I do and a bigger city. To come on your show to answer simple questions as to why this happened.
And to answer questions to the public that elected them. This is
that
why
you work for.
Yeah, this is why Fritz Kagi owes an explanation to everybody. This is a guy who was elected to replace Daniel Barrios, who is one of the Madigan Machine guys who was shady as hell. So the idea was Kagi gets elected as the transparency guy, a numbers nerd.
Right.
He's not a guy that wants to be governor. He doesn't want to be a senator. He comes in to be the white knight, to come in and be the accountant.
Save everybody.
Save everybody, clean up the assessor's office, and be transparent. His guy is a guy named Scott Smith, who literally said to my executive producer, "No, you can't have him now. We'll get him for you sometime next spring."
He said that to me too.
Yeah, okay. Next spring, it doesn't matter to me. Next spring, you're going to be working on the second stack of bills. And then there's a third shortly behind that. What it amounts to, Cook County taxpayers are going to be paying 3 property tax bills in about 9 months.
This guy is running as a Democrat in Cook County on November 4th, 6th, whenever the next election is, less than
November 8th.
16th.
Yep.
November 8th. Less than 3 weeks away. Okay. You got a better chance of giving birth to twin Siamese twins elephants than this guy's got losing an election in Cook County.
Right.
Okay. He's got nobody running against him. And he doesn't have the testicular fortitude to come out of his cave and behind Tony Preckwinkle's skirt or pantsuit, whatever she's wearing at the time, to answer questions. Okay. And then you've got Tony Preckwinkle, who's another, fine elected official in the Cook County board president, who completely mismanaged this whole thing.
And completely terrible at communicating the message of the county. I mean, just awful.
It's horrible. And here's a challenge that we have that the public doesn't know, that I've spent way too much time digging into this, which just makes my head spin off. What I found out was this, and it's been confirmed by a number of different people. Okay, so I got this confirmed. Fritz Kagi and David Orr. Remember David Orr, right?
Course, yeah.
Okay. Fritz Kagi and David Orr were allegedly going to run somebody against Tony Preckwinkle. Okay. We had Carrie Steele, a very nice government official who's on the Water Reclamation District, who ran against Fritz Kagi for the assessor. Okay, Carrie Steele, remember that name because that name is going to come back up in 4 years when she runs again after this disaster. Okay, Carrie Steele has already said, I'm not taking any donations from any attorneys or anything that would have affect and impact the assessor's ability to assess values. I think that's who we want in there. Okay,
right.
So you've got Fritz Kagi and David Orr, who was going to run somebody against Tony Preckwinkle, and then you've got Tony Preckwinkle, who knows that this young lady, Carrie Steele, was going to run against Fritz Kagi, and they basically cut a deal from what my numerous sources told me, and this is how this government thing works, that Tony Preckwinkle will not support anybody against Fritz if they don't run anybody against her. That's 100% verified, and they could say it's not happening, but that's exactly what's going on.
And the end run of that is Carrie Steele gets sidelined. Tony Preckwinkle's threat to her job perceived as reality or just something she's drumming up in her head, that goes away for the time being. And what happens to the Cook County taxpayers? Well, again, nothing gets done because
the freight train.
Yeah, right. Kagi's office can't figure out which end is their tail.
Right. And then to make matters worse, the gentleman by the name of Mr. Rogers, no pun intended, that's his name, Mr. Rogers, who's the head commissioner at the Board of Review. So the assessor does their job, sends it to the Board of Review. The Board of Review reviews everything, makes sure everything's legal, takes care of all the tax appeals, all of that stuff. Guess who's behind Carrie Steele? Mr. Rogers, okay, Commissioner Rogers, who doesn't get along with Tony Preckwinkle. So you've got this infighting, this inbred bunch of hillbillies down in the hollers of West Virginia, right? And I say that, and I've spent 7-8 months down in the hollers of West Virginia, worked in Ashland Steel, so I speak from experience.
Yeah,
okay?
And political inbreeding is dangerous.
It's unbelievable. So you've got the head of the Board of Review who is supporting a very nicely qualified young lady who's running against the guy at the assessor's office, and they're having sword battles with each other. I mean, you've got a triple sword battle going on between Tony Preckwinkle, Fritz Kagi, and I think it's Larry Rogers, I believe his name.
That's right.
Yeah. So you got them. I mean, they've got phone calls and yelling at each other, and then they want attorney opinions from the state's attorney Kim Fox, who used to work for,
and by the way,
Larry Rogers.
Kim Fox is the same Kim Fox you've heard about on a national level as being at the tip of the spear here when it comes to crime in Chicago and turning out folks back on the street who will commit more crimes, gun crimes, murders, all of that. They went to her for state's attorney's opinion on how best to handle fixing this property tax problem. And apparently 2 or 3 weeks later, she came back with no opinion.
Well, she came back with an opinion that didn't have an opinion.
Right. So that means that there's even a further delay.
Opinion. Yeah. So they wasted more time. So only attorneys could give an opinion that doesn't give an opinion, and it's okay, but still charge you a fortune. So you've got a triangle of just incompetence and who's going to protect their turf is what it came down to.
That's it.
And after And I kept digging and digging and digging. And all I wanted was somebody to come on my show to explain to my listeners why the tax bills are late. And then I started digging and digging and digging. And Scott Smith, I think. Scott Smith. I'm sorry. Scott Smith, who's the spokesperson for Fritz Kagi. He, his gatekeeper. Oh yeah, we can't have anybody on. And what I'm being told, because I texted him, I had the text. I showed you the text. I asked him a question, and he wanted to answer the question. Right? He deflected and say that's not true. And I got other people sending me text messages saying what Scott Smith's telling me is not right. And then back and forth. And then here's the biggest thing. We find out, Steve, as you know, that there was a computer system.
Computer system is about 50 years old. And the analogy I used is if you think of the beginning of Apollo 13 when Tom Hanks is in a room with computers the size of your garage, talking about how efficient they're going to be. That's essentially the same computers that Cook County was using. They hire a firm out of Texas. And when you mention Madigan and Jobs, imagine how this could go. And this firm out of Texas supposedly is legitimate, big company. But they come in, they don't run a side-by-side system while they're talking. I mean, two different computer languages talking to each other. The whole thing crashes, and that creates weeks delay as well.
And there's no redundancy, right? I mean, if you're in the private sector and you're doing a computer transition, okay, the odds of the computer transition going seamlessly without any problems is zero.
Right.
Okay. It never happens, right? And what happens in the private sector? You have your old system running as a backup until you can work out all the bugs with the new system, so you don't crash your entire business and you're out of business for a while, right? Like basically what the county did. So that's exactly what the county did. The county switched over, had $16 million, whatever the hell they had, allocated in 2015-16. They finally put it into place. And Fritz ran on this, right? All of his ads, we got this new computer system. But how do you run? And it's a simple question. I think it's a fair question to ask the assessors. Why didn't you have a redundant system, a backup system, running at the same time until the transition was handled over and all the bugs were worked out?
Well, see,
Radio silence.
You hit on it right there. Not only are we not getting answers to these questions, the why did this happen and who's at fault matters. Why does it matter?
Right.
Not just because Fritz Kaeg is going to get reelected again, but too many people all over the country, and certainly including Chicago politics and Cook County and various places, just go, well, that's what happens. They screwed us again. When you have an electorate, when you have an electorate that just believes there's no way to fix anything, you have no control over politicians doing a bad job like this. That's why you got to be pissed off. You got to stand up and you got to say, I'm not going to put up with it.
Right. If you had a Republican Party in the Cook County, right, that wasn't full of January 6th, deniers and the election is rigged. If you had a bona fide Republican Party that was of any way, shape, or form organized within the county of Cook, you would have a run on any elected office you wanted.
Yep.
But the challenge is we don't. And the other challenge is these elected officials view their positions as their own. They don't view it that they work for the citizens of Cook County. Okay. And you've had Tony Preckwinkle on your show. And how'd that go?
Not
right?
great.
I mean, you had to put her on hold.
I had to put her on hold because she wouldn't stop screaming because I asked her about a conflict of interest with the state's attorney who was essentially she was mentoring her into the campaign last time. Look, we live in a time where there is less funding and resources for quality reporting. There's still some great ones out there like Rick Pearson at the Chicago Tribune, but there's less and less of the people doing that kind of work. So that's why David Hochberg is complaining about it. That's why I'm bitching about it, because you need people who are willing to defend you and just say common sense is all we're asking for. And common sense is you owe the people of Cook County an explanation and an apology. And so far, all we've gotten from the assessor's office, Mr. Transparency, is crickets.
Here's the best part, okay, that a lot of listeners don't realize this. You've got some well-funded areas in Cook County townships. So just to explain to your podcast listeners, Cook County takes in all the money for all the real estate taxes and then disperses it to all the different townships that are out there, which we have way too many in Cook County to begin with, but we're not going there right now. Okay? So Tony and her band of thieves takes $1 billion of the 16 off the top to run county government. For whatever reason, we need that. Okay, and then the other $15 billion goes out to I'm in Northfield Township. I grew up in Maine Township. You've got Niles Township. All these townships throughout the Cook County region, right? That throughout the county of Cook. Now, some of these areas are very well funded and have resources and have backups. There are other areas out there that don't have any money, Steve, and are having to go. Here's the best part of this whole thing. The most effed up thing out of this whole thing is that these townships and these municipalities, because they're underfunded and don't have the funds, have to go to the banks that are sitting with the $8 billion to be dispersed to the Cook County, the county of Cook, to borrow money from those banks to fund their operations until the tax bill is sent out, and the money can be transferred over from the servicers who are sitting with billions of dollars of escrow funds, right? I mean, the homeowners are paying into their mortgage payments more than 50% every single month. You're making your mortgage payment, your taxes, and your insurance, and the escrow department within those servicers are taking the portion that goes to taxes and insurance and putting it into another fund, and they've got over $8 billion sitting there. Well, it's not that much because some people pay on their own, but they've got billions of dollars of escrow money waiting to be sent to Cook County that these municipalities are borrowing from the banks to fund their operations. You can't
insane.
make this up.
No, it's insane. And you know what? The other municipalities that didn't take those loans or didn't take the county's quote interest-free loans were dipping into their FEMA and COVID funds, and that's money that could have been used for other things. So it's a colossal error, a colossal mistake. You deserve an explanation. And again, wherever you're living in America, wherever you're listening to this, anywhere in the United States, and we have listeners all over the country, you need to know you got to keep an eye on your government. Don't expect they're doing the job you elected them to. Ask them what job they're doing. It's the only way to keep them honest.
Hold them accountable to do their jobs. And guess who the customer is? I'm the customer because I live in Cook County.
Right.
So I am a customer of their incompetence. Right.
You would never put up with it from an employee of your own. Private companies could never get away with this.
If Fritz Kagi, right, worked for me in my department, right, and I said, hey, Fritz, can you explain to me why this is happening? And the board wants to know what's going on. And I'll get back in the spring. All right, Fritz, here's a box. Security's gonna escort you to your office. You've got 15 minutes to put everything in this nice brown box that we put together for you. Right, and we'll escort you out of the building because you're not capable of doing your job. Or, hey, guess what, Steve? Every once in a while, something goes sideways, right? And then I got to step in if something goes sideways and explain to the borrower or to the realtor or something, hey, this is what happened, okay? And you make it right, and you get a little chapped ass every once in a while. Every business owner has been through it, right? You want to have 100% success. If you're doing 100% success, then you're not doing something right, okay? So every once in a while, you're going to have an unhappy client, an unhappy borrower, whatever. So what do? You make the call. It's not comfortable. You apologize, and you do the best to make it right, okay? You can't even get a call back from the guy who's responsible for doing his job. He is underground because, as we went deeper and deeper into this, Steve, that whole thing of Fritz and David Orr, who's another elected official here in county government, very well respected, wanted to run somebody against Tony. Tony, protected them so she didn't put any backing behind Carrie Steele. All makes sense now, right? Because where's Fritz Kagi? He's hiding in some underground bunker. Where's Tony Preckwinkle? Won't say any bad word. I heard there was a moratorium that was put out to the county board members. Radio silence on this. Everybody shuts their mouth. Nobody says anything except who? Maria Pappas.
Yeah, Maria
She
Pappas
doesn't care.
No, she stepped up, and when you listen, she'll even tell you why she's not running for mayor.
That was the best answer ever.
Such a great answer. All right, listen, thank you again for doing this. But before you go, your regular business in operation is doing something, and you don't have to get into the full details, but I think it's a really cool program that I think HR departments ought to look into. It doesn't cost them anything, and it's essentially a perks at work. This is something that can benefit you in recruiting and hiring new employees because they're going to save money. The company doesn't have to pay anything. What do they need to do to find out about it from your company?
Yeah, it's real quick. It's an affinity program that we give substantial discounts on our services. We partnered with realtors who are donating back a part of their fees that they earn, and substantial savings. It's different than all the other mortgage affinity programs because we incorporate the realtors and the title company. And we just had our first one close. A young lady at the Buffalo Grove Police Department she saved over $8,400 buying a home under this program, which went a long way with for her because she wants to put it back into the home and all that other stuff. So if you want to learn more information, you can give me a call, 855-56-DAVID. Ask for me, or you go to our website, 56david.com, and send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to run you through all of the benefits and how to sign up, like Steve already mentioned. Excuse me, got a little hiccup. It doesn't cost anything, so it's the best. It's the best program out there for client retention and employee retention.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're Woodward or Bernstein, who's the other guy?
Woodward, Bernstein. I don't know. I would say probably Rick Tellender because I like sports. So it's
Hochberg and Tellender. No, it sounds like you're doing most of the work. Thank you, David Hochberg. It's appreciated.
Take care, buddy.
So the moral of the story is don't allow politicians to mess with your life. If you elected them and you want them out, elect somebody else. And if you elected them, they're not doing their job, call them out on it. That's your power as an American in a democracy, still and until further notice. Thanks to Ross Cochran for producing, as always. And thanks to you for listening. This has been a special commercial-free edition of Live from My Office.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Support the show by subscribing wherever you're listening and by telling your friends about it. Follow Steve on all social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And make sure you check out this episode's show notes for relevant information discussed during the conversations. You can also email the show directly at thecochranshow@gmail.com with any questions or comments. And that's the best place to tell us about your favorite nonprofit so we can make sure we mention them on the next episode. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event. And occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.